Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to all for elect. It's going to be a short one. Just wanted to do a lesson off of this article I found off of End Time Headlines. It says, Lawmaker delivers grim warning after claiming he watched classified UFO footage. And he said, we can't handle it. And it's written of in the scriptures that you're right, you can't handle it because it's not written in the scriptures for you to be able to handle it or for you to win. In the scriptures is written about, the scriptures write about the so-called, what today in modern terms is called UFOs, but in the scriptures there's known as the chariots of God. They're known as a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day that led the Israelites out of Egypt. When you read the book of Exodus, also that same pillar that stood between the Egyptians and the Israelites when they were crossing, as it says in the scriptures, the Red Sea, but it's the Gulf of Suez, right? So what in these modern terms they call UFOs have always been around, right? So I'm going to read it, going to bring out some precepts, and Lord's willing, this will be edifying. So like I was saying, so-called what they call in modern terms today, UFOs have always been around. You just have to read the scriptures, and the scriptures tell you everything, right? So it says a Tennessee lawmaker issued a dire warning after claiming to have seen classified UFO footage that hasn't been released to the public. According to Fox News, Republican Tim Burchett, Representative Tim Burchett, a Republican for Tennessee, speculated extraterrestrial life forms could have technology that humanity can't handle during an appearance on the Event Horizon podcast, which, again, in modern terms, what people call aliens and UFOs, the scriptures identify them as the angels of the Lord inside the chariots of God. That's what the moving vehicles are called. Me and the brothers did a lesson that me, Ashiyar, and brother Shamyar did lessons on what are the chariots of God, right? Explaining through the scriptures what it is, because in these modern terms and in this modern day, you have the movie like Nope, right? That movie, that Jordan Peele movie, Nope, dealing with this flying object in the air that was sucking people into it and killing them. And when you have that, when you watch that movie puts a certain vibration that's like, yo, I don't want to be a part of that. I wouldn't want to have that thing be around me, because all that's encompassing that object is death. Because when you see uh, that object, right, that UFO in the movie, all it did was kill people, right? Which, yes, when the so-called UFOs pull up, right, in reality, in real time, and in reality, yes, they will be destroying people, but they will also be delivering people as well. That's written of in Malachi, Matthew chapter 24, verse 30 and 31, if I'm not mistaken, right? So when you watch modern movies and things like that, they put a certain vibration on these on the things written of in the scriptures that will make you afraid. But for us who are of the hopeful elect, who are hoping to be delivered, we shouldn't be afraid when we see the chance. Now, yeah, you're going to be somewhat afraid when you see it, because you're going to be like, oh shit, this is it. Am I getting delivered or not? Am I going to get left down here, or am I going to get beamed up? Yeah, there's going to be that fear factor, but for the most part, that will be joy, because you know at that point, that's it. The minute you see Yahweh Shai with the big chariot, the other chariots as well pull up, this is it. The missiles is like seconds from hitting this place, and the only fear you're gonna have is, am I getting beamed up or not? That's really only fear. But you're not gonna have, because I know somebody that watched that movie Nope, and they were really afraid and things like that. And that's what the point of these movies is, to put that type of vibration, that fear, that when you see it. And when I say put fear on you, it's really mostly for our people, because the elites know the truth about the Bible. They know things, like Elder Apostle Kabar always says. In order to tell a lie, you have to know the truth, right? Because you have to deviate from the truth. So they know the truth about this, what they call today in modern terms a UFO, and they have to put a evil or like a fear vibration on it to make you be afraid of it and for you to like want to stay away from it. That's why they make movies like Independence Day. These things come here and they mean no good, but for so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, that is a sign for your good if you're of the elect. If you're not, and if you're of the 2/3, really you should be afraid. Then yeah, it don't mean you know well. Right. Also, there's another movie, War of the Worlds as well with Tom Cruise. I know they made one, maybe I think like maybe in the 70s or 80s if I'm not mistaken, but the more recent one that people really remember is the one with Tom Cruise in it. When those so-called uh, spaceships with the legs on them, if I'm not mistaken, was zapping people. That's what they're going to do when they come here. But that's for those of the wicked. Those are the 2/3 of our people that didn't repent, that didn't want to come back to the Lord. But for those that do repent, which I'm just going to get it now since I've been talking about it, those that do repent and turn back to the Lord, they're going to be delivered. Right? This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And those clouds of heaven are what in modern times people deem the UFOs, or I think they call them UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they call it now, right? But mostly UFOs, unidentified flying object, right? So those clouds are talking about the chariots, right? The chariot of God. When you read about it in Acts, the first chapter, I might get that as well. Who the word only calls Jesus Christ was lifted up. He got beamed up into that same thing, and the disciples are looking up at him, right? And the angels was like, "Why stand ye gazing? The same way he left is the same way he's going to return," right? So I'll read that again. Verse 30 says, "And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven," meaning that giant fathership that he's going to come on, which I'm also going to get because that's a precept I have written down as well. Second Ezra, the 13th chapter. That giant fathership is what he's going to be in, right? It's going to be a very giant of fathership. In the movies they call it the mothership. No, it's going to be a giant fathership. Right, bigger than the size of the earth. If you watched what was it, Independence Day Resurgence, I think it was, what they deemed the mothership, how it was huge, it was bigger than the earth. Yeah, it's gonna be like that. Just to give you visualization. It says, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So via those chariots is how the Lord's elect, right? Those predestined are going to be delivered. But those who are not predestined, those who are really predestined for destruction, are going to be destroyed by these things. I was talking about Acts, just to give proof. Right? And it even says right there, this is Acts chapter 1, verse 9, and you see the little subtitle, it says the ascension. So where did he ascend to? Right? He didn't just float in the sky. No, something took him there. The same thing like when you read, I forgot where it is, but I know it's in 2 Kings, where Elijah was taken up by the chariot of God, and Elisha saw it, and he's like, my father, the chariot of God. And the way, pretty much the way the chariot came in, it came and swooped him up and took him into heaven, right? Which really it took his spirit into heaven, because the physical body is not needed, because it tells you that in, if I'm not mistaken, Corinthians, there's one kind of flesh, there's one glory, the glory of the terrestrial and the glory of the celestial, right? So when that chariot came and beamed him up, however that happens or however that looks, if the flesh melts away as your body's getting lifted up or whatever, but really it just took his spirit, and then what? That thing went and went back to the spiritual realm, because that is the capability of those vehicles. They're able to hit this dimension and then go back to their dimension, which would be the spiritual realm, right? So there is a vehicle, right? The same way like a car will take you from, people say that about cars, I just get a car to take me from point A to B. Well, yeah, those vehicles, like using Elijah for an example, took him from point A, the terrestrial world, right? Took him from here, beamed him up, took his spirit in that chariot, and dipped off with him to point B, which would be the spiritual realm. And that's where Elijah was at rest. And Elisha witnessed that. That's why he said, my father, the chariots of God. And he talked about how they were on fire as well. It says, Acts chapter 1, verse 9, and when he had spoken these words, spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. What cloud is that? A so-called UFO, right? And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, right, as he was getting beamed up by that chariot, right, which is being called a cloud, not an actual cloud didn't receive it. No, it's code word for the chariots of heaven. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, so they're looking, as he was talking to them, that thing beamed him up and he's levitating in the air. He's ascending, right? And they're looking up at him like, yo, what the hell? Two men stood by them in white apparel. The two men are angels, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Yahushua, which was taken up from you into heaven, shall also come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. So the same way he left by what they call a cloud is the same way he's going to return. And he spoke about that in Matthew the 24th chapter. Now, use your brain logically. You mean to tell me, right? I'm just gonna say it this way. You mean to tell me that so-called Jesus Christ gonna come back with clouds? Does that really make sense? Yeah, I'm gonna come back and return with clouds in the sky. What type of sense does that make? No, the clouds is AKA for the chariots of God, the vehicles of deliverance, right? The same way that vehicle of deliverance was there during the time of again, like I mentioned, during the time of Egypt. David wrote about it in Psalm 18, right? If I'm not mistaken, Zechariah, the 5th chapter also. I see a flying roll. So it wouldn't make sense for the Messiah to come back with clouds. You see clouds every day. These clouds are code word for something. All right, so I'll read this part. It says, the man said, if they're out there, they're out there. And if they have this kind of technology, then they could turn us into a charcoal briquette, Burchett said, which he's right. That's the point. I'm going to get that, like I said, in 2nd Ezra's 13th chapter. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man, right? Which man is that? The same man that the angel said, the same way you saw him leaving is the same way he's going to return. Well, Ezra, the prophet, saw that, saw the return of the Messiah. And I beheld, and lo, that man, which is the Messiah, Yahushua, waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. Now, hold up. I believe that's Revelation. So pretty much all the prophets spoke the same thing. I believe it's 1-7, right? No, I'll read this. This is Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. Right? Talking about the clouds again are the chariots. So when the Lord returns, when the Messiah returns, he's returning with that big fathership that he's coming in. But also he's going to return with so-called other clouds, which are the other chariots of the Heavenly Father, right? He's going to come in the biggest one, but the angels are going to come in one as well. All right, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, even so Amen. So everybody's going to see the return of the Lord because, again, there's going to be this big fathership in the sky. I don't believe that was a precept I wanted, but still wanted to explain that. So going back to verse 3, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. The thousands of heaven is who? The other angels in the chariots as well. Right? And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him, just like I read in Revelation, right? So pretty much Ezra and the apostle John the Revelator are speaking the same thing. They're just saying it a little differently. One may be a little bit more straightforward in how he's explaining the return of the Lord, and one may elaborate more, right? So one of the prophets may condense his explanation or his vision upon the return of the Lord, and one may condense his explanation on the return of the Lord, and one may elaborate more on the return of the Lord. He may say a little bit more things to explain what was going down, depending on the vision that he received. So it says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him, right? Just like we read in Revelation, everybody shall wail when they see him. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. And when it says it came out of the sea, it doesn't mean that he's going to come out of the sea. No, not like in that movie War of the Worlds, where there was like a flash of lightning that went down into the earth, and the ships pretty much came out of the earth. No, when it says the sea is talking the sky, because pretty much the atmosphere, right, out there in space is nothing but water. So when it says he comes out of the sea, meaning he's going to come from the sky. So I'll read that again. And after this, verse 5, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number, right? And that's talking about Esau and his armies and these other nations that are going to fight against the Lord. Because in World War III, what they're going to be fighting amongst each other, but when the Lord returns, they're going to turn and fight against the Lord. From the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Again, not talking about the literal sea. He's going to come out from the sky, because in the atmosphere, in space, there's nothing but water. Shemayim, right? That which pertaineth unto waters, right? So in space, there's nothing but water. So he's going to come out from the sky, from space, and enter this world, right? And you're going to see that giant fathership in the sky, however it's going to look, however illuminated it looks, how shiny it looks, how brightening it looks, right? Everybody's going to see that. And these men that are going to be at war in World War III, they're going to be fighting amongst each other. And then when they see that, because like I said, everybody's going to see the Lord when he returns, they're going to turn and be like, yo, what the hell is that? Where'd this thing come from? Right? That thing is going to get everybody's attention, because you got to think about it. These men are at war. They're shooting tanks. They're shooting missiles. And then you imagine the sound of that, however the hum or the vibration of that, however it's going to sound, is going to just come and just crack the skies, right? And you're just going to hear the hum of this thing. I'm just, spiritually talking. I'm just guessing as a man. This spiritual or heavenly hum of this vibration, this vehicle just pulling up. Because the same thing, think about when you have cars pass by, cars kind of have like a hum to them, right? Or like even buses when they're like on standby, right? They have like a hum to them or something like that, like a very silent hum. But then when they're moving, they have that sound to them. If you have a car, you know what I'm talking about. But right, so imagine this vehicle just coming down into this realm and having that hum, but it's not a low hum. It's loud enough for everybody to hear it. Plus, this thing is very shiny and bright. The same way like a car, like I was saying, it has that hum, right? Or like a motorcycle when it revs up or whatever, it's humming like it's on standby. But then when the person's get ready to go, they go and they dip off and all that type of stuff. That's what I'm talking about, right? And then also however the motorcycle may look, if it's beautiful looking, if you're into motorcycles, you might be like, ooh, that gets your attention. Well, it's the same thing like the chariot. It's gonna have that hum to it. It's gonna have that sound where you're gonna hear it. And then the illumination of the chariot is also going to capture your eye. And you're going to look at it and be like, what the hell is that? Just to paint a picture in your mind. Verse 6, it says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it, right? That's going to be that fathership again, right? That's going to be pretty much like the size of a mountain, but not literally. It's going to be bigger than a mountain, right? Verse 7, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. So when Ezra says he's trying to see the region or place whereout the hill was graven, it's not saying that the Messiah is going to literally be on hill. It's just giving figurative, allegorical talk, meaning that he's likening this UFO that the Lord is going to return on to like a hill or mountain, because it's going to be massive in size, right? And he's trying to see, because graven means to be cut, so he's trying to see the end of this large object in the sky. But he's saying, I can't see the end of it. I'm looking left, I'm looking right, I'm trying to see the whole picture of this thing, and I'm not seeing where this thing is cut, where's the end of this thing. Because again, graven means to be cut, so you're going to see what, like if you cut a piece of paper, that's the, you're cutting it down to size or whatever. So he's trying to see where's the end of this thing, and he's not able to see the end of this. Right, so verse 7 again, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered to, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. So although these armies are going to see the Lord return and they're going to be afraid, but it says what? They're going to still fight. Why? Right? And like the brother Aharon has always said, durst meaning to dare to fight. But why are they going to fight? Because you would think if you see something like this, you got it, boss. Like, listen, we ain't got nothing for that. We've already known about you for a while now. We've heard your prophets speak about you. We've seen your technology in the sky. This thing is even bigger than the rest of them. You got it. You win. We submit. You win. But why is it that they're still going to fight? Because like brothers always say, the Lord is going to put the spirit on them to fight. But why? I believe that's Deuteronomy. Is that Deuteronomy or Leviticus? Let me check Leviticus first. I believe it's Deuteronomy. No, it is Deuteronomy. Here we go. This is in the law. So it says, this is Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 10. It says, when thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. If it shall be, if it make thee an answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. So when we go to conquer a city, if we proclaim peace unto it, saying, hey, we're coming unto you peacefully, just look, let us do our thing, peace, right? And if they proclaim, okay, you got it, peace, peace, then cool, that these people are going to be tributaries unto you, right? So like I was saying, if these other nations, when they see it, they're scared, and they be like, oh, look, Lord, you got it, you win. We see that we can't fight against you. You win, you got it. But the Lord doesn't want it like that, because the Lord wants violence. He wants us to be violently taken down. Hence the reason why the Lord is going to put the spirit on the armies, that even though they're going to be greatly afraid, they're still going to dare to fight. Somebody is going to push a button that is going to shoot a missile at the chariot or at the angel's chariot. And that's pretty much going to be like, oh, really? Okay, fire at the ass now. That's pretty much what is going to happen. There's going to be some spirit, or like if you've seen the Doctor Strange movie, just to give an illustration, the recent one that came out, not recently, but the newest one, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. When Wanda pulled up, pretty much that's how pretty much the scenario is going to be. When Wanda pulled up, which is Scarlet Witch, pulled up to, I think it's called Tamahaj or something like that. Pretty much the place where all the sources be at. What's his name? Doctor Strange and all the sources be at. When Wanda pulled up, she was pretty much like, listen, return the girl unto me peacefully, and we ain't gonna have no problems. If you don't return the girl peacefully unto me, I'm gonna destroy this whole shit. That's pretty much how it's going to be when the Lord returns, and when Esau and the other armies, these other nations, all gather together to fight against him. That's pretty much what it's going to be like. Like how was in the movie. Return the girl unto me, and everything's gonna be good. Peace. You don't return the girl unto me, I'm gonna destroy this place. And what she basically did was, she was trying to find because they had spiritual powers, magic or whatever, to pretty much she was trying to get through the defense, the barrier that they had around the fortified sanctuary. And she pretty much got into the minds of one of the men, and she was like, run, right? And that's pretty much the illustration I'm trying to give you, is that pretty much, whether it be Yahweh Shai or one of the angels or however it goes down, they're going to get in the minds of one of these men where they're going to be so afraid, but yet still push that button and shoot a missile. And we're going to read what's going to happen when they fight. And when you watch the movie, once the dude ran away, they was able to get inside. She was able to get inside and destroy the place. But just to give, if you've seen the movie, just to give an illustration. But continuing on in the law, verse 12. And if it make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. Right? And when the Lord thy power had delivered it into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. Right. So that's pretty much why, to fulfill something that is written in the law, that if they come peaceably unto you, then peace. But again, the Lord wants this to happen by violence, right? So he wants to destroy Esau's armies. The same way when he destroyed Egypt, right? The Lord severely destroyed Egypt, right? He destroyed the Nile River, which was a big thing for the Egyptians, right? He destroyed it economically and things like that, right? And then he also destroyed their military. So the Lord severely crippled Egypt, right? He made a mockery of all their gods. He destroyed their king along with the army. So that's pretty much what the Lord wants. He doesn't want it to be like peace, because remember, when you read back in Egypt, I'm sorry, not in Egypt, but in Exodus, what Pharaoh eventually let the children of Israel go after that last plague, which was the death of the firstborn, right? So after that, he was like, listen, go dip. I don't want y'all here. After all that, just leave, just go. So the Israelites left. But remember, when you read the book of Exodus, I can't remember where it is, but pretty much the Lord said, I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, right? So the Heavenly Father wanted his name to be honored. He wanted to get honor. He wanted to get that respect. And you don't get that respect by just having things be all just, okay, they gave up. Because like, well, why did they give up? Is it the same thing? Like, why did you yield to him? Yeah, well, I saw the power and everything, and I saw I could, but did you even try to go against him? Like, how did you know that you couldn't take him down? So it's the same thing. It's like, listen, it's not enough that y'all just bend to me. I need to show my power as to why y'all yielded to me, why y'all gave up, why y'all couldn't take me down. Because if it just happens, okay, we give up. We saw that we couldn't take him down. But it's like, how did you see that you couldn't take him down? Well, there needs to be an example of that as to why you can't take down the Lord, why you can't go against his power, why he's undefeated. Right? And that's pretty much like with Egypt. Right, when the Egyptians saw the sea, the spreading of the sea, and the Israelites were going through it, escaping, the Lord pretty much made Pharaoh and his armies also follow as well. Why? So he could destroy Pharaoh and his armies, right? To show his power, like, this is why you don't mess with me. This is why you don't try to come against my power. This is why you don't try to touch my people, right? Now you're seeing an example of the Lord's power, that what he not only made a way for the Israelites to escape, but then that same way that he used for the Israelites to escape, he used it as a way to destroy Egypt's armies. Right, so you're seeing the reason as to why you can't go and fight against the Lord. So I forgot where I was at here. I will start verse 8 again. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. Durst meaning dare to fight. Right? So somebody is going to push that button that's going to shoot a missile. And it says, verse 9, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he had sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Now, it doesn't mean literally that the Lord, when he comes back, this is not Dragon Ball Z. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, or any anime for that, or any type of movie, sometimes, certain characters could shoot energy blasts or ki blasts like Dragon Ball Z out of their mouth. This is not what the Lord is going to do. It's allegorical talk again, right? Figurative speech for those chariots are going to shoot laser beams, right? Or concentrated fire from them, right? The same thing like how Esau has his tanks and things like that, and they could pretty much shoot fire via those the tanks that could shoot fire out of them, the missile like mini grenade launchers or missiles or whatever that they shoot out of the tanks. It's the same thing like the chariots. Remember, these are vehicles for war. But they're also vehicles for deliverance as well. But these are vehicles that are coming for war. So they have the same capabilities. You can't think that man has the capability to make a vehicle that could shoot out missiles and things like that, right? But then the Lord doesn't have that same technology. Remember, everything that's here on earth is a copy of the spiritual realm, right? And when I mean a copy, meaning that, you know, what's up there in the heavens, like the chariots, they're flying vehicles that hover in the sky. Well, man has that same thing with what? Is a copy of like the airplanes and things like that. So when we talk about the chariots and say that there's flying vehicles from the spiritual realm, that's not something that you should really like scoff at or sit there and see it's impossible. Man has the same thing. That's pretty much a copy of that. Airplanes are just a vehicle that transports people from one place to another and it hovers in the sky. You have helicopters that they do the same thing. The only thing is that the Lord has that, but it's on a greater scale that also hovers in the sky and can what transport people from one place to another, deliver them from an area, and can also shoot, as I said, concentrated heat or spiritual heat at people. It's again, the scriptures say nothing shall be impossible with the Most High. So you're telling me that man can have something like that, but the Lord can't? Why can't he? Doesn't make any sense. So it says, and lo, was I here? Yeah. No, verse 10 says, so right, that in verse 10, that's not literal. It's talking about the chariots shooting laser beams from them. Verse 11, it says, and all they were mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Right. So that will be the end of Ezra, or at least that part of Ezra, the 13th chapter. So yeah, like this man was saying, if they're out there, they're out there, and if they have this kind of technology, then they could turn us into a charcoal briquette set. So you're right. Like it says in Second Ezra, they are going to turn you into pretty much like you said, a charcoal briquette. Right? They are going to turn you into dust and smell smoke. Continuing, it says, and if they can travel light years or at the speeds that we've seen, and physics as we know it, fly underwater, don't show a heat trail, things like that, then we are vastly out of league. And you're right, because like it says, matter of fact, I'll get that because I also had that as well. Revelation 12 and 7. This is another one, right? Revelation chapter 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Not going back to that story that people believe in the churches about there was war in heaven and the Lucifer rebelled against God and then Lucifer got cast into hell. No, that's bullshit. That's a made up story. That's a fable. That's a fairy tale, right? It's talking about when there was war in heaven. It's talking about on earth, right? Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Who's dragon? Esau and his armies. But like we read in Ezra, there's also going to be the other nations there as well, right? So Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, right? And the dragon fought and his angels, right? So Esau and his other armies are going to fight against the Lord, with Michael's also going to be there and the other angels as well. It says, verse 8, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven, which heaven means their rulership, right? Right? It's not talking about actually in heaven, because Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is in his heaven right now. His heaven is his place of rulership. They run the earth. Job 9 and 24. So this is the place where they have, this is the place where they rule. So this is their heaven, right? But the Lord is coming back to pretty much take them out of heaven. So when it says, and there was war in heaven, right? Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. There's going to be a fight between the angels of the Lord and Esau and his following, his army. And it says what? And prevailed not, meaning that they're going to lose. So like he said, then we are vastly out of league. And Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 and 8 shows you that you are vastly out of league because you don't have a shot. So yeah, that's about it. I didn't want to make this too long, but just want to do a lesson off of this. I found this very interesting. So, pray this video was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak, Qudash, Shalom.